So we're going to move. We're going to move on to. We're going to move to England now, and I'm very, very excited. Very. I'm not going to say honored because that's too formal, and she wouldn't like this. She's my officially. She's my god auntie because she's very humble and sweet, and very accessible. I always feel like she treats me like a brother, and. I want to say two things. If you may want to close your ears here, Didi. I don't want to embarrass you, but there are two things I want to say. No, don't close your ears. Just accept it. The first thing is that this generation of there's a special coterie of devotees around Gurudev who came from Prabhupada, and I learned very early on how much Gurudev venerates, glorifies. I mean, respect is just too small a word for what he has for Srila Prabhupada. You know, he came to the West in order to serve Prabhupada's mission, actually. And when if you overlook all the institutional differences, which are really incidental, you can see how Gurudev is an expansion of Prabhupada's mission. And you can't really separate them. They're one, same, and different. And they just came in different times to do slightly different things. To serve Parampara and Gaunitai and Shishi Radha and Krishna. This generation of disciple who came to Srila Prabhupada and Srila Gurudev, firstly, we, and I say we as in those that came to Srila Gurudev, were too late to come to Prabhupada, although when I first came to Vrindavan, I wanted Prabhupada as my guru, but in 1996, obviously, unless you're a Ritvik, that's not possible. So this generation, they are the Angi of the Anga. Prabhupada worked through them, served through them to make Krishna consciousness possible. I mean, it really is, I worked it out, the chances of us appearing in a human body within 500 years of Mahaprabhu's appearance is 324,000 times 10 to the power of 27. So that's 324,000 trillion. It's an extraordinary luck that we have fortune. And to be born in such a way that we can be in receipt of these scriptures, these personalities, these books, this artwork, this shastra, this community, these teachings is totally overwhelming. And people like our next speaker have been instrumental at making that possible by serving, giving their hearts to Prabhupada. That's the first accolade. That's the first thing I want to acknowledge of this next lady and all of her generation. The second thing I'd like to say is those that came across to Srila Gurudev, whether it be in 1990, 1988, 99, 2000, sorry, I got the decade wrong, 1988, 89, 90, 91, 92, a lot came in 96, some came later. I think Didi came in 96. Those that moved across, oh, he came earlier, sorry, Didi. Those that came across to Srila Gurudev from the so-called institution of ISKCON really paid a price that we can't, they really did something very special. They recognized their Prabhupada in Srila Gurudev, and they often suffered the opprobrium, the criticism of others, and yet because of their good-heartedness, their sincerity, their shraddha, and their recognition of an acharya, these institutional considerations became secondary, and that also is a great offering through their actions to the whole of the development of Vaishnavism in the West and globally. So these are the two things I want to just recognize in our next speaker, and by recognizing it in our next speaker, I'm also recognizing it all of that generation who did that, to whom I have a debt that I can never repay, quite honestly. And then on a sort of more intimate level, I'm so happy that she's my friend. I'm so happy I read with her, go on Sankirtan with her. It's very special. She's a very special lady, and her name is, I'm sure you all know her, Srimati Jagatam Dasi, in the UK, originally from the States. Met the devotees first in 1975, and I'll let her paint in the rest of the tableau. Hare Krishna, Jagatam, Dandavats, and welcome.
Hare Krishna.
I could have talked for a lot longer, actually, but I realize it's not my Pushpanjali.
Wow, whoa. Thank you, Yashoda. What can I say? Your words melt my heart. Yeah, you know, I asked Yashoda if I could speak again. I actually already spoke at the very beginning of the Gurudev memories, but I didn't feel that I properly glorified Gurudev and Prabhupada. So he kindly is letting me speak again. Again, I'm feeling totally, you know, this anxiousness and nervousness in my heart and my gut. But thank you for allowing me to speak. So,
Jagatam, I'm not allowing anything.
Well, you know, it's all about mercy, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I just wanted to say, you know, for posterity's sake, I wanted to say, because I saw that many devotees told about their journey and how they came to Prabhupada and how they came to Gurudeva. And I wanted to express that also for myself, because it actually, it does express the glories of our dear gurus, Srila Prabhupada, Srila Gurudev, who are ambassadors from the spiritual world. When I was 7, I was brought up Catholic, and once a week, a priest would come into our classroom to teach us more about the Bible, catechism class. And he was a very nice man. So I asked him, I raised my hand and stood up and asked the question, when I pray, who am I praying to? Because, you know, when you're praying, you're talking to someone. You want to know who it is. So he just looked at me, pinched my cheek, and told me to sit down. Never got an answer. And a few weeks later, the Catholic Church, they have the doctrine of predestination. So I asked, I think, I was still only 7 years old. I asked, if there's predestination, then how is it that we have free will? It's a good question, isn't it, really? And again, the priest, he didn't answer. So I was really disappointed, because I wanted to be a nun. I had looked at all the books that my mother and I got out of the library at what kind of convent I could join, you know, and they had all these different headdresses. And anyway, but I was very disappointed that he couldn't answer those questions. And, you know, so for many years, there was this yearning, this very deep searching going on in my heart, and always asking, who am I? Why am I here? Who is God? What is my relationship? I know that everyone here has gone through these questions. And so, yeah, this was going on for many years. And it wasn't until I was 25, I had taken a hatha yoga class. And when you do these different postures and breathing exercises, something loosens up inside, something unlocks. And so I said to my teacher, what is next? Can you tell me what comes next? And she understood my question. She said, no, I'm sorry. I don't know what is next. She didn't give me a different posture to perfect or different breathing. She understood what I was saying. But it was very soon after that there was actually, my university was right across the street from a temple in Pittsburgh. And my boyfriend at the time, there was some advertisement, come to the Varnashram Institute for a free vegetarian lunch. So we were vegetarian, so he suggested, let's go there. So we did. And that was it. That was my doorway. That was the beginning. And I had some very amazing impressions of that first temple that will never leave me. So I joined the temple eventually. And that was also interesting how that happened, because I was living in a dorm, not a dorm, but a house where there were 4 other women living with me. And I lived in the attic. And I had started chanting Hare Krishna, but I was chanting very, very softly, very quietly at 6 o'clock in the morning. But somehow the girl who owned the house heard that chanting. And she, in front of me, asked her lawyer boyfriend, if there's someone you don't want to live in the house, what do you do? So then I understood exactly what she was talking about. And I just, I was hesitating to go back to the temple. So I slammed my hand down and I walked to the temple 6 blocks and I said, can I stay here? And so the lady devotee who answered just, yes, I'll ask the temple president, but yes, I think it's okay. So that was my beginning. And then very soon after that, the devotee said, Prabhupada's coming to New York. We're going to go see Srila Prabhupada. So we all jumped into our different cars. We drove up to New York. And that was an amazing, amazing experience. We were all chanting kirtan in the JFK airport and waiting for Srila Prabhupada to come. It was a kirtan which lasted 45 minutes. And then all of a sudden, the double doors opened up and Srila Prabhupada walked through, but didn't walk, actually was above the ground. This is how I perceived him. And immediately upon seeing Srila Prabhupada, it was as if tears started in my toes and shot up my body. And they actually, shot out in front of me. And I paid obeisances and everyone else was paying obeisances. And then I was realizing that there were tears were everywhere. It was like wet everywhere. And then in my mind, I said, or something said to me, he is a pure devotee. At that point, I didn't understand what that term meant. I was only in the temple 1 month, but I understood he is a pure devotee. So that was my first meeting with Srila Prabhupada. And yeah. Then after that, I was transferred to the Philadelphia temple. I was doing book distribution, Sankirtan, we used to call it Sankirtan, but it was book distribution every day, going to the airport, distributing books. Oh God, there's so many stories I could tell. But because I was a young woman, the men were allowed to distribute, only the men were allowed to give books to the soldiers who were coming through. These were young men coming from the Midwest of America who were like innocence personified, and whatever you would tell them, they would completely agree with it. But I wasn't allowed to approach them. I was allowed to approach the businessmen and the older ladies. So sometimes I'd go into the airport bathroom and cry my eyes out and just pray to Srila Prabhupada. But somehow or other, we ended up distributing many books, including Chaitanya Charitamrita volumes, Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatams. And so this brings me to the quality of Srila Prabhupada that I wanted to talk about, especially here today. And that is his quality of love and kindness and compassion. These qualities are inherent within Srila Prabhupada. There is no difference between these qualities and Prabhupada himself. And that is because Srila Prabhupada is coming from the source of all these qualities, and that is Srimati Radhika. She is the source of all kindness. She is the source of all love and all compassion. And Srila Prabhupada embodied all of those qualities. He was those qualities. In his presence, I could feel this so distinctly, so tangibly. We were overwhelmed and covered. We were covered by those qualities. that were there in Srila Prabhupada. And so in this morning's class at the Manor, there was a discussion about the two different types of devotees, the Bhajananandi and the Gostiyanandi. And Srila Prabhupada would always say to us, oh, we are Gostiyanandis. The Bhajananandi, he mostly emphasizes his own chanting. You know, he sits for hours and chants the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra and studies. But the Gostiyanandi, he goes out and he gives that to others. And so the speaker of the class this morning, Sutapa Prabhu, he said, Lord Chaitanya said, oh, best way to be is a Bhajananandi devotee who goes out and preaches. Not to be just a Gostiyanandi, but to do bhajan. And this is something that I learned so much and that I gained so much from Srila Gurudeva, that he was impressing upon us. Do bhajan. One time I gave him a gift of some donation, and he put his face right down within 2 inches of my face. And he just looked at me and he said, I want that you do bhajan. So, you know, in ISKCON, we were brought up to follow the morning program strictly. So we would rise early. Prabhupada always said, rise before 4. We would take our shower and go for Mangalarti. And then for 1.5 to 2 hours, we would sit in the temple room and all chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra together. And then we would sing the Guru Vastam, Shri Guru Chana Padma by Natram Das Thakur. We would sing that together and offer Guru Puja to Srila Prabhupada. And then we would have kirtan for the deities, and then we would have class. And the class would end at about 8:30, and then we would take breakfast prasadam, and then we would do service all throughout the day, and then come again in the evening for evening arti, Bhagavad Gita class, and like that. And Srila Prabhupada used to call it the transcendental sandwich. I think was that the term he used? The ISKCON sandwich. Yeah, the ISKCON sandwich. Morning program, service during the day, and then evening program, so that there was no time for Maya at all. Of course, we were very, very fortunate. Like Yashoda was saying, the fortune that we had is off the charts. I would say that there's no comparison to the fortune that we had at that time to meet Srila Prabhupada. In the 1960s he came, but I never met him till 1975. But, you know, the fortune that I had to meet Srila Prabhupada then, to be blessed by his merciful glance, to be given initiation by him, was just something unbelievable, something that cannot be measured by, like Yashodanandan always measures time. But this kind of fortune can never be measured. And it's like Bhaktivinoda Thakur says in one of my favorite lines in his song, Gurudev Kripa Bindu Diya, your mercy is all that I am made of. And this is something I often feel. I've told this story before. When I was staying in Vrindavan a few years ago, many people would come up to me. These were devotee, young people, new people coming to devotional service, mostly coming from a yogi background, practicing yoga. And they would come up to me and say, oh, they'd never met me before, but they say, oh, you have so much love. And I didn't understand what they were seeing and how they could even say that, because I didn't feel it myself. But later on, coming back from India, I understood, yes, Srila Prabhupada injected me with that love. That love was injected by his sincere mercy for me, and by that initiation he gave to me. So anyone who takes initiation from a bona fide spiritual master, this is what happens. That injection of love goes in. Nowadays, we hear that word a lot, but this is the real injection, that injection of love and mercy. And empowerment. So I want to speak about this empowerment. If you have association and are blessed to take initiation from such a high-class Vaishnav, then that empowerment goes into you. And, you know, someone was, I think it was Sachi, or someone was mentioning earlier, Sachi Mata was explaining, you know, how Gurudev wanted her to go on book distribution and everything. So Srila Prabhupada, you know, when Srila Prabhupada said he wanted us, in the beginning, he wanted us to chant 64 rounds. So the devotees at that time said, Prabhupada, no, we can't do that. So Prabhupada thought, okay, 32 rounds. No, Prabhupada, not possible. And then Prabhupada said, okay, minimum 16, but you should preach at least 6 hours every day. In this way, you will get the benefit of always thinking of Krishna, talking about Krishna like that. So this is what we did. You know, we did our chanting in the morning, depending on the mercy of Prabhupada. And then all day long, we were out in the street distributing books and meeting people who were looking for Krishna, praying to Lord Chaitanya to meet these people. And, you know, we would be out all day, but come evening time, maybe 7 o'clock, even 8 o'clock, and the devotee said, now we have to go back to the temple. No, I said, no, I can't come back to the temple because look, there's still so many people on the street. How can I come back? They said, no, you have to come back and then, you know, do your morning program again, and then you can come back out on the street. So I would be convinced to go back to the temple. But this was our fire. This is what we were living on in the fire of that desire that Srila Prabhupada had to bring so many souls back to the lotus feet of Radha and Krishna. We were living in that fire. In fact, for me, it was samadhi. You know, we understand that the word samadhi means total absorption. But I have to tell you, we were totally absorbed. There was never one moment that we were not connecting with Krishna and Radha, with the holy names and with the spiritual master and with our service. Not to say that I was deeply connecting, because I feel I have such a far way to go. But at that time we were in samadhi. And the reason for that was because we were being directly empowered by the pure devotee. And I want to give an example of that. Some years ago, I had a shaman visit my home, and he sat on my sofa and he empowered, he gave some mantras for some of the devotees that were there in the room to chant. And we were standing around one devotee who was lying down on a table for healing. We were standing around that person. But the shaman was sitting a little bit in the distance from us. But through the mantras, he was empowering the people who were standing around that devotee to give healing, to put our hands on that devotee's body and give healing. He explained it like that. So from that, I see how Prabhupada did that, you know, many of us did not have that much personal association with Srila Prabhupada, like other devotees, like Mother Yamuna and those devotees who spent so much time with Prabhupada and traveled with him and served him personally. Most of us didn't have that personal association, but it didn't matter because we were personally being empowered by Srila Prabhupada. And later on, a few years later, after Srila Prabhupada left this world, once again, I felt like I was put in the same condition that I was before I met Srila Prabhupada. I felt like I don't know how I can go on. And I was crying. I was telling this to my devotees in my reading group. I was crying literally for 3 months without stop. I mean, literally, you know, plastered up against the wall. I couldn't stop crying because I didn't know what to do now with Prabhupada not here. And so my god sister Yashashvini, I called her and she said, I understand that if a pure devotee is on the planet and you pray to that person, that person can appear to you and can help you. So that's what I did. And it was through Yashashvini that I met Srila Gurudev. So, you know, again, he came because of my crying and and how Prabhupada came, but it took a long time for me to be always constantly, you know, desiring for the absolute truth. Of course, at the second time around, I was already in the loving embrace of Srila Prabhupada. I was in his ISKCON movement, and I was fully embracing the sadhana and the service that was given to me. But still, there was some feeling of loss and emptiness and not knowing how to go forward. Srila Prabhupada explains, I think it's in the fourth section of the third canto, that when the spiritual master leaves this world, two things can happen with the disciples. One, the disciple will already be so strong by the mercy of Sri Guru that they will not need another Siksha Guru, another in the physical form. The other scenario is that they will need another Siksha Guru, and your Guru will send that person to you. So I feel that's how it happened in my life, that Srila Prabhupada arranged with our parampara for me to be, for Srila Gurudev to come to me. And when Srila Gurudev, I was so fortunate to attend so many sanghas with Srila Gurudev, to go to so many festivals in Europe and Italy and Germany, and to meet Srila Gurudev personally in Vrindavan and Mathura. And even though I didn't have much understanding, and in the background was always the harsh hissing words that were coming to me from people that I was, had been associating with, that, not to go to this person, don't, and that was always there. So I felt like I wasn't able to fully give my heart, and so there was some distraction going on in my life at that time. But still, I was very fortunate to have that association. And then later on, still now I'm under association of highly advanced Vaishnav. But by mercy, I remember one time feeling very forlorn, existentially feeling very alone. And I opened up the computer and I found a lecture by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And he said, you must always read and hear in association with devotees. So I got the idea to start a reading group, to start calling devotees all throughout the UK who did not have any association. They were not in near a temple. They had no association with devotees. So I started getting in touch with these devotees and started reading with them. And now in England, we have many reading groups, and it's just so wonderful. And with the very sweet and loving and beautiful devotees that are in the reading group that I have now, we're reading Srila Narayana Maharaj's books. And I feel like I'm getting so much mercy from those readings. And all of the devotees in our group, their hearts are so open, and they're hearing these words from Srila Gurudev. And I feel myself, I'm hearing these words for the first time also. And I'm feeling so much gratefulness to Srila Gurudev, what he gave to us, how he gave me the deeper meaning of what Srila Prabhupada wanted to give me. And I have no doubt about how, like what Gurudev's, what Yashodanandan said, Gurudev and Srila Prabhupada are one. There's no doubt. They are one in heart. Like Jesus said, I and my Father are one. Doesn't mean that Jesus is God. It means that the message of love is the same. And the message of love came from Srila Gurudev. the same. We came from Srila Prabhupada, but we couldn't. We were very neophyte, and we couldn't fully understand and accept it. But we held on because we had faith in Srila Prabhupada. We really had full faith. And I remember one time, devotees came to Srila Prabhupada and they said, "Prabhupada, we cannot understand this book, Nectar of Devotion." And Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. And Prabhupada said, "Oh?" He said, "No, we cannot understand it." And so, but he said, "That's okay, keep reading." But they said, "No, but Prabhupada, we can't understand." So very firmly he said, "Just keep reading." So we know that just by following the process of sadhana that's given to us by our spiritual master, we will reach the goal, whatever it takes. If it takes him sending us to another Shiksha Guru, whatever it takes, that will be bestowed upon us, because we're already linked into this divine parampara. We're already linked. And this is why I encourage anyone who hasn't taken initiation, you have to pray, you have to beg, you have to cry. Like Gaur Govinda Maharaj always said, we have entered a crying school. And Gurudeva, Narayana Maharaj, he often said this also. We have to cry, we have to beg for, yes, please send me to a pure devotee, or send that pure devotee to me. And that, you think that won't happen? Krishna can do anything, and Krishna does. Yasya prasada bhagavat prasada yasya prasada nagati katopi. By the mercy of Krishna, one meets a pure devotee. By the mercy of pure devotee, one comes to know Krishna. So I don't know how much time I've taken or how much time I have.
You're outside of time, Jagatam. You're neither in time or outside of time. So we're good. We're good. We're beyond the day of Brahma. As you said, I'm always calculating time so I can arbitrate. I don't really want to give you a restriction, to be honest. It's so beautiful. Officially, you have another couple of minutes. If you want to take a bit more, no problem.
No, I don't think so.
I think it's quite funny because you said to me, I can only do 15 minutes. I knew, I didn't take that seriously at all. I didn't even respond. I responded, "Oh, okay, no problem, as you like," but I knew you'd have no problem.
Well, what happened was knowing that I'm going to have to speak, of course.
Yeah.
Shri Guru entered my heart this morning, and then many things came to me. And so then that's why I texted you. I said, maybe I will speak longer than 15 minutes.
I knew.
Because it's all their mercy, isn't it? Everything is their mercy. If whatever we can speak, whatever we can do is only their mercy. So, and thank you, Yashoda Nandan,
thank you, Jagatam,
creating this beautiful forum.
I'm so happy you came on again. Can I ask you a couple of questions before I sort of pick out my favorite vignettes? One was, you said you distributed the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Now, that's huge. How do you distribute that on the street?
Yeah, at that time, we were distributing big books in the Philadelphia airport. Can you imagine?
How
only big books.
I mean, it's not big books. That's like 20 volumes.
Oh, no, just one volume at a time. We only distributed one volume of the Chaitanya Charitamrita.
Just the first volume.
Huh?
Just the first volume.
Yeah, no, could have been any volume.
Wow, that's amazing. Wow.
And one volume of the Srimad Bhagavatam also.
I just read this morning in Chaitanya Charitamrita Antya-lila chapter 17, and it's just like one of the verses in there about the four sounds of Krishna, his words. I'm trying to remember his words, his ankle bells, his song and his flute, his music. Yeah, amazing. I mean,
oh, how beautiful! That's all in Antya-lila. I mean, when I was a new devotee, I would read the Antya-lila and I would write extensive notes on it, and I would decorate my page with flowers because I knew that this was something really special, but I had no idea what it was actually saying at that time.
Yeah.
And then Gurudeva brought us deeper. Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, that's the point you made, which I wanted to highlight actually, is that it's like we come into this world like a music record. Have you ever seen a puck? So when you get the old vinyl records, they start as a puck, and then they have these massive machines that press the impressions of create the music into the record. So the little grooves are pressed into a new, like a new puck. So what they're doing is they're kind of almost, you could say they're taking the grooves out, or they're repucking us, and they're putting new impressions in us all the time. So even if, like, I remember when I first came to Gurudev, I hardly knew the Maha Mantra, and he was talking about Manjari Bhav, but he gave me the goal of Krishna consciousness in my heart, which gave me a sort of a peg from which I could hang everything else. So although it didn't make any sense to me then, like it does more to me now, it was creating that core kind of kernel, as in like a computer kernel impression in my heart, from which everything else could then coalesce and then become like a beautiful living poem in my heart. So
oh, beautiful.
Incredible. The other question I had, we got a question from the participant actually, which I'll come onto in a minute, which is unusual, which is nice. We don't normally do Q&A. But you talked about the Shiksha Guru. I've never heard, where did you get that from, the two options? Like either, you know, you don't need another Shiksha Guru, or you might need one depending on your, how, you know, where you're at in your relationship when the pure devotee leaves. Where's that from?
I think it's in Canto 3, Part 4.
Oh, the Bhagavatam. Okay.
Yeah, it's from the Bhagavatam. I don't know the exact verse, but it was in a purport by Prabhupada.
Okay. Just a few things I want to highlight. There's so many things I could say about what you said, but firstly, I want to just remark that although you spoke in the past tense, everything felt that it was in the ever-present present. So although you were talking about Prabhupada's qualities were, and I did this with Prabhupada, and this happened with Prabhupada, because Prabhupada, we know the pure devotee never dies, and because your love for Prabhupada is so living in your heart, what came across to me is the presence of that love. When you describe Prabhupada's love and compassion and kindness and compassion, that wasn't a past tense realization, and that didn't transmit like something from the past. That transmits as a present reality, and that came across, and that's really beautiful, and I thank you for that so much. I also loved, I feel like there's a poem or a song or a book to be, and I actually quoted it on the WhatsApp to encourage some more people to come in. When you said that tears were coming from my toes, I was like, wow. So I've written tears from my toes. And I think that someone needs to write a song or a book or a poem based on tears from my toes. It's so beautiful.
Wow.
And you also talked about empowerment, and you talked about empowerment's not about necessarily how much time you spent in the physical proximity of Prabhupada or the pure devotee. And Prabhupada's own lifetime is an example of that. He was, in relative terms, he didn't spend that much time with Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada. So he's an example of that. Okay, he's a pure devotee, so it's a bit different, but still, it's the Vani. It's more than just the Vani, it's the mood within the Vani that's the most important. That's the key. And I thought it was so important what you said about how Gurudev looked at you closely and said, I want you to do bhajan. And I remember there was someone, I won't even say the gender of this person, but a beautiful, beautiful devotee. And they said that when Gurudev came to speak at Krishna Balaram in Vrindavan, he spoke to everybody en masse. And the impression this devotee got, because Gurudev said, you've done all this seva, he was kind of para-quoting him, you've done all this seva, now is the time for bhajan. And this devotee took it like Gurudev was sort of arguing against Prabhupada, and didn't understand that what he was trying to do was give everybody what Prabhupada wanted to give everybody. Right. So they saw them as separate in their mind instead of seeing Gurudev as the culmination of Prabhupada. Such a shame. And I wasn't really in a position to I didn't want to argue, you know, I don't like to argue with somebody in this way. You know, it's not of interest to me to argue, but I felt sad because they're a beautiful devotee that they'd missed out from this understanding that you gave us. And the final thing I wanted to say was cry. If there's one thing that I get from what you've just given us in your Pushpanjali, it's the importance of crying. And I do cry, but I don't cry very much in my bhajan. So I want to cry that I may cry, actually, in the way that we can have greed for greed. Maybe I can cry that I can cry, maybe. Or maybe I can just have greed for crying.